I'm delighted to say that joining me now is Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Alex, welcome to Bernardi. Shall we get straight into it?
Let's get straight into it, Corey.
All right, mate, you've had a busy week. But before we do get into viewer questions, I'm going to ask you this. You've been very active in the South Australian Liberal Party. I'm reading all about it. You're taking it over. You're dragging it to the sensible centre, which many call the extreme right. And I ask, why can't other states follow suit?
Well, Corey, I'm going to agree with some of that and say, look, it is good to see Liberals, real Liberals, coming back to the Liberal Party. I mean, who would have thought? And we're seeing it in droves here in South Australia. And look, I think part of it is because people have understood after the election cycle that minor parties can't stand for our conservative values, our liberal conservative values, with any great success. We've seen that. There just hasn't been a success rate. And those people are very, very welcome back with the Liberal Party here in South Australia, and they can always get in contact with me, alex@believeinblue.com.au, if they want to learn how. Every other division can do this, Corey. It just simply takes people to take a leap of faith and come home. It's like one of those old Lassie movies. You know, we're seeing Liberals, not Linos, in the Liberal Party here in South Australia, and it's a good feeling.
Well, it's certainly what the Liberal Party needs. And I tell you what, the FBI needs that laptop you've got lurking in the background, that property of Hunter Biden. I have had people comment to me about some of your backdrops, Alex, so congratulations. All right, let's get into this first. Links asks, would a royal commission into the COVID response actually achieve anything? Now, I think it would. What do you think, and what do you think it would achieve?
Look, I'm with you, Corey. I think it's an absolute necessity, and we've seen the Prime Minister talking a little bit about this in recent times, but not being very committal to the process. So I'd like to see it being just taken the bull by the horns and run with. I mean, royal commissions are very powerful institutions. The subpoenaing of witnesses, the production of documents, the cross-examination of key players, and I, for one, think it's absolutely essential to get to the bottom of the public health response, the work of some of the bureaucracies, the regulatory bodies like APRA, the TGA, their involvement, and what we've done well and what we've not done well. Because let's face it, Corey, the last 4 months between January and May, figures came out today from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 10,757 Australians, excess deaths have died in that period over the baseline average. There are things that need to be discussed about this. We can't get anyone in the mainstream media to talk about that, by the way, but that is the fact. And I wonder what caused it, Corey. I wonder what caused it. So let's have a deep dive into this, and let's get this Royal Commission happening.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense of this. If we're told to prepare for future pandemics, how do you know how you're going to respond to them effectively if you don't recognise and identify the mistakes of the past? There is no excuse not to deep dive, as you said, into this. All right, Harry asks, Queensland teachers are having their pay docked for not taking the jab. How can we rectify this injustice? Alex, what do you reckon?
Yeah. Look, I mean, once again, perfect example of the sorts of things that need to be looked into. I mean, just when you thought that some of these responses could get no more moronic, this one comes along and out moronic's the moronic. I mean, what we're being told here is by this organisation, Queensland Education, is that these teachers, as unjabbed, if you like, uninjected, are so dangerous that we'll have them back onto the grounds in order to work, but we'll just dock their pay. Now, I mean, I just, that can be nothing other than standover, ultimately. It can be nothing other than harassment. It's not a public health response. It's just simply, punitive in a sense. So, I mean, these are the sorts of things that need to be unpicked and looked into. What can people do? Well, they need to write to their local MPs if they feel strongly. We know that these people are no threat. They're no danger. The CDC, as you said in your earlier piece, have said exactly that in the United States, that people who are uninjected are the same, if not, more, or they're the same in transmission terms as somebody who is injected. So, let's get real. Queensland Education, grow up.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Okay, Bina asks, how will Antic, that's you, reduce the size of the federal government in a speedy manner? What timeline? Gee whiz, there's a blank check, isn't there, mate? What can you do as a single member of Parliament?
Well, keep talking about it. What can Antic do? I've become like Madonna. It's one name. It's excellent. Look, I think that nothing from opposition other than talk about it, really. And I mean, if I had my way, I'd sack half the bureaucrats in this country and start concentrating on something other than critical race theory for 10 minutes. Let's see them do the real work. And look, there are some very good ones, of course, but on the whole, I think those are the sorts of things you'd look to. But what can you do from opposition? Not a lot at this point, except flap your wings. That's why we need to be back in government. And when we're back in government, we need to take the bull by the horns and take these things on properly.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. But in opposition, you can pressure your opposition or your members to be better and stronger and more consistent and more principled, which is critically important, not to surrender to the agenda of the left. Something you are not doing. You are fighting back as hard as you can against the terrible termites in your own party. Alex Antic, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.